Thank you for listening to ChartYourFi. I'm your host, Chris Elder. And today on ChartYourFi, we have evolved into an interview podcast that talks about goal planning, overcoming the odds, financial independence, and how it's not the end goal, but a means to find your purpose in life. And we talk about the not so common sense things in life. Stand by for the sound of freedom. Before we get to the Chart Your Fi episode, I just wanted to do a quick shout out about Return to Roots podcast. It's about retention in the military, transition from the military, and reintegration into the community. This podcast is not just for the service member, but for the family unit as well. Also, anyone that wants to put action to their thank you for your service can find more information on this podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and many other social media networks. Thank you, and listen to the Chart Your Fi episode now. In today's show, we get the honor of recording with Trevor Maxwell, a retired senior chief EOD tech and military money mistakes creator. He's also the host for Get to Vet, and it's going to be a good show. I hope you're ready. Well, yeah. So, if you don't mind talking about like the content thing, how because I think it's important for people um to understand, like, hey, your first attempt at things, it goes south, and you
Oh,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
So,
that you probably maybe you like heard that story, right? About like the guy that calls the plumber to come fix something, right? And the plumber's there and he fixes it in like 15 minutes. And the guy's like, wow, thanks. That's, the plumber's like, no problem. That'll be 1,200 bucks. And he goes, what do you mean it's 1,200 bucks? It took you 15 minutes to do it. He goes, you know why it took me 15 minutes to do it? Because I've been doing this job for 30 years. Right. And over that time, I've acquired the skills and experience necessary to diagnose and fix a problem like that in 15 minutes. Paying me for the you're not paying me for the 15 minutes. You're paying me for the 30 years. Right. And you think about that, like, wow, yeah, it takes somebody. I thought this was a hilarious quote. It's true, but they say, like, yeah, it takes 20 years to get 20 years of experience. Um, you got to put in that work to do things, to make mistakes and learn from them. And especially with content, like, I go back and I look at, I'll tell you this, like, when it comes to content, uh I'm not uh I'm no Ernest Hemingway or whatever, but or what was his name, Bill Shakespeare. I uh i've i've just been decent at writing. I've always been good at writing, I think. um Something I like to do, just kind of think of ways to say things that kind of maybe reach out to people, connect with people. And I think that really is something that a lot of people, maybe they would like to do it, but they're afraid to do it. They're afraid of like looking like a dumbass or whatever. And you think about all those people out there right now, like Brendan Burchard. That's a big one. That dude pulls in tens of millions of dollars of revenue a year. Like, he has, I think he does like 10 clients a year, and each one of them pays him hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for coaching. Um, he talks about that. Like, if you ever hear him, like, I didn't start out like this. I was terrible when I begun, with all that, right? Same thing with content. Like, you're never going to knock it out of the park, or maybe you will. Maybe you'll have like that viral moment, that post that gets, 100,000 views or whatever. But then you go back the second time, and the next one only gets a couple hundred, and you get crushed. Right? It's just understanding that, like, especially when it comes to content creation, like what I said to you before, right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of done. Um, all those people that sit there, and I'm guilty of this too. I've done it. oh, I want this to be perfect. This has to be perfect. It has to be perfect. Like I think about that, like, when I was active duty and we would plan to go do the big mesh, right? And we would like plan stuff out well, and it would go out and it would be executed pretty well. Like we did a really good job. And so I just had that mentality of like when I was starting to do things like, oh yeah, I'm just going to knock it out of the park this first time, right? Because I prepped. Well, what I didn't realize, what I was thinking is like, I didn't always, like when we go out and do those operations, we wouldn't always knock it out of the park when we were training, when we were preparing to do this, when we were practicing. The reason that we got so good at doing what we do is those 16-hour days of workups. Whether you're in the shoot house or you're out doing land warfare or, air ops week or any of that stuff. You do it over and over and over again. That's kind of the mantra. They say we don't do it until we always get it right. We do it until we can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
Like that's
We,
a real popular saying. Like,
we have something very similar to that. Whenever we go and do our CQ trainings and stuff like that, which is carrier qualifications. So we'll take like 10 to 12 men that are going to stay on shore, and then you got like 80 people out on the boat, right? And we got like 10 or so, okay, 7 to 10 aircraft. It just depends. And every time something goes wrong. But if you don't plan for everything to go wrong, and you didn't like continuously, oh hey, like this time, some bozo might put all the tires on the boat, or which you're like, okay, what's wrong with that? Well, what happens when they land and they need a tire on shore?
yeah,
See, that could be a dilemma. Or like, hey, like, we'll have like certain qualifications between three different squadrons, and it's a small det site, and we're doing carrier qualifications for a rag squadron, which is like your training squadron. You need to talk with the other squadrons and see what quals they have, just like you guys. Be like, you have your specialty, we have our specialties with our organization. So working that out, you're not gonna, when you go and execute, you may not be 100% have everything that you need, but you've done it so many times that when something comes up, it's just a speed bump.
yeah. No, that's what it is that constant incremental improvements, right? But you have to do it. You have to get out there and start doing it and making those mistakes to improve upon. Like, did you ever see that? I know it's a real have probably shared this before on LinkedIn. There's somebody draws this picture and it's like 1 to the power of 1 equals 1, right? But or what is it? It's 1 to the 365th power is 1. That's what it is, right? And then they show you the difference. They say 1.01 to the 365th power is 37. So just that little inkling of difference, right? That little extra effort and improvement every day. Like that, Albert Einstein said that's one of his famous quotes: compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Yeah, you just have to start. And I was the same thing. Like if I could go back and tell myself, oh man, if I could go back 5 years ago and say, hey man, let me share some perspectives with you that you learn over the next 5 years and talk about that stuff, I would probably be a lot better off. But that's the whole thing. Like I'm where I'm at now because I had that experience. So yeah, if somebody's wanting to do that content, more importantly than making good content is making content, right? So like what we had a saying like in whenever you do free fall ops, when you're doing the safety brief, they say your first priority is to pull, right? Your second priority is to pull stable. Your third priority is to pull stable at the correct altitude. So that's the whole thing, pull, right? First rule, create content. Second rule, continue to make your content better all the time. Third rule, like expand, figure out, how to turn that content into something that you can use. And not everybody, some people I think just create this stuff and I feel like they don't have an intention with it. They're just creating stuff. They're like, yeah, I'll just go out and say some of these things, and people will like it and get it. Just like when I started, like when I got out, retired out of the Navy, people were like, what do you do? I was, hey, I work in financial services. Believe it or not, people aren't going to say, oh yeah, you should I should come work with you. And like, no, right? That's not what happens. And I'll
Bro,
tell you,
when you start talking about finances to other people, man, they literally like go, oh nope, I can't talk no more. It's taboo.
yeah.
Taboo. Taboo. This guy's he's got like a penis on his head or something.
I just, I tell them like, yeah, I just do that. And I don't say anything else, because that's the problem is like, there's a lot of people that work in the industry, and I kind of learned this the hard way. I didn't know what I was doing at first. Most of them are new people, so they don't know what they're doing, but it immediately turns into a sales pitch. And I don't, I got away from that, right? I was lucky enough to kind of have some of these epiphanies in my career and say, all right, I'm not going to be like, just some of that stuff, that advice that I got. I didn't realize later that like in the world today, that the advice I was getting from these guys that have been doing this stuff for 20 plus years was terrible for the people that I was trying to talk to. They say, well, here, let's practice your elevator pitch. I don't have an elevator pitch anymore. If somebody wants to know who I am and what I do, they can go follow me on LinkedIn, or hope, soon YouTube. Or when I roll out some of the other social media platform, I'm not doing all that stuff all at once. I'm starting small and kind of building it out over the course of the year. Because I just thought, like, I don't want to burn myself out. I'm not going to overwhelm myself. Like, I'm just going to continue to do this, have a steady thing. Because, on top of that, like what I'm doing with military money mistakes, that's going to take, before it's like a really viable product, and where, I think I'll have like people just steadily checking it out. I have every expectation that it's going to take at least a year of just being consistent, and first and foremost, being there, doing it right, and then making it better, and taking those improvements and using them to continue to grow, and turn that into income. And that's the other thing too. Like, people were like, oh yeah, if you're so whatever, why don't you do it for free? Like, this is my job, dickhead. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this
It's
is
like, why don't you go flip burgers for free?
yeah,
Or
like,
why don't you go?
do you work for free? No,
Yeah.
neither do
No.
I. Right? It's just you chose to go sit in an office and wear a polo shirt and khakis every day and fill out spreadsheets. I chose to stay here and not make a whole lot of money for several years, with the hopes that I would create something and learn this skill set and grow it and get to the point where hopefully, yes, not only do I live well, or do I make a living off of this, I make a way better living than I had ever imagined.
And a lot of people may not understand, hey, you're talking to, there's two veterans here. Well, one to be, in the future,
Yeah,
but we've already done our grind to where, now we could pursue our future,
yeah,
our passion, and sometimes people are like, oh yeah, don't do something that you don't love. And I'm not telling you not to go out there and grind, and you're gonna have to do things that you don't like to do. That's just life. There's things that we have to do that are not necessarily aligned with what we've always imagined we're going to do, plain and simple. But what are you going to do to change and better your position to where you're getting to where you need to be at? And your content, hey, at first your content's not going to be what you want it to be. People imagine, and they're probably thinking Mr. What's that guy, Mr. Wrong, or Mr. My kids are going to kill me because I can't remember this dude.
oh, Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast. You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to come out and be like Mr. Beast. You know, that guy's got a support network of camera filmmen and producers, and he's got an entire team. You know, you're not going to come out and be like him at first. You're going to be yourself, and eventually you're going to grow if you consistently do it. It's just like going to the gym. You're not going to come out next day looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger telling you to get your ass into the chopper. No, it's not going to work like that. You know what I mean? It's like you got to consistently plug at it over and over and over again. Like Cameron Haynes in his book. I'm not sure if you read his recent book, Endure. Talks about he just keeps saying, keep hammering away, you know, keep hammering it over and over again. And he's right. You just got to keep plugging away at what your craft is. Um, I'm gonna go back into what you were talking about, the 1 by 365 comment, because it reminded me of this. There's this philosopher who's got this content called Optimize Me Heroic.
Yep, I'm familiar with it.
So Brian Johnson, that dude
Yeah.
is freaking amazing. And and on this podcast, I told Brian Johnson I was doing this, and he gave me a thumbs up. Like, I didn't ask for any money. I was like, hey man, I tell people about your product because it's a pretty damn good product for what you get. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's free. So why would you not do it? You know,
Yeah.
but he talks about this +1. You remember that one?
I would have to. I've consumed a lot of stuff over the last
Yeah, no, I get it. I
several
get it.
years, so I get
So,
yeah.
so this +1, he keeps talking about it right now, man. And he keeps talking about like, hey, if you just took your day, 24 hours, and you broke it down by minutes, and you spent 1%, that's 14 minutes of your day improving yourself on something. You know, if you spent 1% of your day to improve your craft, 1% of your day to improve your whatever it is that you want to improve, eventually you're gonna that 1% is gonna turn into 100%. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And statistically, if you look at it, the rule of 72 says 72 days. But hey,
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like I attribute a lot of, the level of success that I've achieved so far, like everything that I've learned that's helped get me here. I didn't learn it from people that work in financial services. Like, and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of people in financial services that just don't know. They same thing. You see it everywhere. Like there's people that don't have any aspirations to do better. Yeah, they would love to make more money, but they don't want to go out and learn all this extra stuff to do it. They're stuck doing cold calls, and because they think like, oh, that's how I'm going to do this. Like that's so everything I've learned now that I think has contributed to the success that I've achieved so far has been from people who don't do anything like that. They do everything but what I'm doing for a living. And that's the stuff that they're teaching is the things that I kind of realized. I think I told you this when I was at my first firm. I kind of had been there 2 years and I was like, man, I kind of feel like I'm plateauing here. Like I don't see any upward momentum for me staying here in this spot. And I think about this. I'll tell you, like I'm a huge fan of Deion Sanders. I always have been. Like when he was a player, I was a big fan of him as a coach. I was really hoping that West Virginia would hire him this year after their season. Didn't happen. He went to Colorado. But I just watch all these interviews with him, and always thought about one thing that he said that really struck a chord with me. He said, "What was your backup plan?" He said, "I didn't have one." Hey, because if I had a plan B, I never would have made this work. I would have made an excuse and said, "Oh, it's too hard" or whatever. And he said, "I would have given up." So I didn't have a plan B. And I thought about that, and I was like, "Man, that's all the insight." And it's funny because I hear a lot of people talk trash on him, like, "Oh, whatever." He's like, "No, that guy's listen to him talk, man. He's actually a very insightful person." I've learned more from him about just things like dealing with people and being successful than any mentor that I've had working in financial services.
Yeah. You know, the whole entire you want to storm the island, you want to take the island, burn all the boats. You
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of wise advice about that, but he probably didn't talk about like his thought that he put into doing his craft before that. You know what I'm saying? He sat there and he's like, hey, his craft didn't just happen to him. He put a lot of training and a lot of effort into getting to that point where he
Yeah.
decided this is what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? So there's a point in time, like for example, after you're coming out of the military, hey, you got to change it up. You got to do something. But this is the time for you to figure out what is it that makes you tick. You
Yeah.
know, Deion Sanders just had the benefit of knowing what made him tick before he
Yeah.
got out. So
Well,
B option was not feasible
he,
for him.
yeah, he had that spark, right? And
Yeah.
he knew, like I think you and I had this conversation before. He knew, like he talks about that, like when he was gone, he's like, defensive backs did not make a lot of money back then. You didn't see defensive backs making these 7-figure contracts and stuff. So he said, I knew I had to create something that was larger than life. And that's, prime time, right? I mean, he created that. And he became such a huge public figure that, I still think we're talking pre 90, whatever, pre 94 OJ. Like, do you remember OJ, like in all the commercials and
Yeah.
movies and stuff? Like,
I also remember I remember the Bronco advertisement he did.
yeah, yeah, right. Uh, I'm surprised nobody's made a spoof of that yet. But
Bro, like
anyway,
honestly, Bronco should have used that as their advertisement as a solid truck because that truck just kept on going and going. It's like, holy crap, man, how many fuel tanks does he have in that thing?
man, I got to tell you, if somebody put me in charge of Ford for one day, I would make a commercial of the new Bronco driving down the interstate chased by a bunch of cops. And the guy would pull over and the cop would walk up to him and he'd roll it down the window and it would be OJ. And he's like, is there a problem, officer? But
I'm endorsing this. I'm ready for this. You heard it
yeah,
on
all I
you heard
need
it
is
on
one
Chart Your
day,
Fi.
one day. I'll get it. I'll have all the stuff ready to go. But no, I just, I think about like that, all that stuff that I have kind of realized like makes you successful. Yes, you have to be good because it's something he says too. Like, hey, you got to have game if you want to, all this other stuff, all the branding and things like that. It doesn't mean nothing if you can't play ball, right? Look at, of course, some of the other guys have done it. Peyton Manning, um,
Hmm.
you know, uh, Shaquille O'Neal. I think that dude is like oh my gosh, he's got so much stuff going on. I think he still pulls in I read somewhere that he still pulls in like $60 million a year
I'm
off
not
of,
surprised.
yeah. And, but no, yeah, that just, to go back to the original point we were talking about, right? But you have to start doing it, man. You can't, like, all those apprehensions you have now. I'm past that point because I had that, I was a little bit shy at first, like, well, I don't know, what if somebody thinks it's dumb. Now I don't care if somebody thinks it's dumb. If they think it's dumb, it's probably because they're dumb, right? That's the attitude that I have now. It's like, yeah, you say it's dumb, but you don't know shit. uh right, who are you? But I just, I had to overcome that, just like everybody. I get it, I've been there, I walk the walk. And I felt all that anxiety and apprehension, but I was able to overcome that. And on the other side, it's been good because now I have like people that's like, yeah, man, I really, I like your stuff. I've been following you for months now, and I decided to reach out to you. And that's ultimately like my ultimate goal was like, hey, I don't want to be that cheesy dude that everybody knows on LinkedIn. As soon as they put transitioning military in their headline, they just get blasted with all those, you know, it's like the hot girl at the bar and all those dudes in there are like, hey girl, you're so beautiful. What, like, same analogy, right? Like
But just
everybody's hitting
imagine,
you up.
yeah, imagine, from her side of the view, she's like, damn it, I walked into a sausage fest again.
Right. Or,
you know?
I always thought about the recruiting commercials where like you could get money for college, you could see the world, you could, learn a trade. And then the Marines are like, these dudes are like killing dragons with swords and be like, maybe you could come work with us. Maybe. Right. No
Yeah.
guarantees, right?
Yeah.
That, that was a super smart branding move, right? And it's kind of, I'm not slaying dragons or nothing, but at the same time, I'm not, out there sending people these stupid messages. I get sick of that. I'll even say it now. Like, honestly, 98% of the people that send me a message with a connection request, I may or may not even read the message and I just click X. like, connect with me or follow. That's what I do. I connect
Yeah.
with somebody and then I send them a message after. I'm not going to waste my time sending you some dumb message that you're probably not going to read until we're connected. Then I'll send you the message. And then,
Yeah.
maybe you'll read it, maybe you won't. But I'm
See, and you're not saying like, hey, don't network and stuff like that. You're saying like, I'm not going to be the cheesy one who's not even connected to you
yeah.
and start messaging you. And
Yeah.
I I get that, like, to an extent too, because like I go on Facebook and if I see somebody doing pretty badass on something, guess what I do? Hey man, I'm an average Joe and I would like to have you on my show. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I this show is purely based off of just I see somebody, I think they're doing pretty awesome. Hey, come on my show. Like,
Yeah.
tell me your story. And but, but here's the thing, like it's not cheesy. It's this isn't my show. This is actually so Chart Your Fi. Originally, I was like, man, I'm going to do a financial show, all that stuff. And I started talking, man. I was like, man, I'm not really into listening to myself all the time. So
Yeah.
like I need to change it up. And I'm like, hey, I like talking about financial independence, but really it's more than just financial independence. It's a mindset, it's goal planning, it's overcoming the odds, like you were saying, like, hey, just get out there and start doing your thing, you know?
To that point, right? One of the most important parts of achieving personal finance is you have to make money to do it, right? And then learning like what are the skill sets out there that will help you do that. Yes, you can go get a job somewhere if you want. You can go be a GS 12 or whatever and go work there for another 20 years and then have, 2 pensions or whatever. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, go ahead, do it. Not everybody does, right? A lot of people are like, yeah, I kind of want to look at something else out there. And those are the people that I'm like, yes, I get that. Let's chat. I'll share I'll share the information that I've gathered that's helped me. Maybe
Yeah.
it won't help you, maybe it will. Maybe you take what I tell you and what somebody else tells you and put them together and you make it your own and then you become successful, right? Because that's, that
Yeah.
whole like that crap. I'll tell you, like, I saw this one day and it was a tweet. I'm not on Twitter, but I do see like somebody shared this on Facebook. It was like, uh, there are many ways to become a millionaire, but I can assure you, saving $5 on coffee is not one of them. And I was like, that dude's keeping it 100, right? That's just the first thing I thought. But then all these people are like, "Oh, I can't believe you would put something so irresponsible on there." I'm like, "Oh, okay. These people don't have a fucking clue." Like that's sorry for the. I don't know if you beep that out or
No,
what the
it's
rating is.
I just even if it's clean, I still put the little E on there because every
Yeah,
once in a while,
yeah,
I still put out, hey, here's the thing. This is a genuine show, you know what I mean? So
yeah. But I see what's that little hand there.
so I raised my hand
Oh,
and it did that little thing. I didn't
oh,
realize
that's
it was
cool. Does
doing
it
it.
do it if I do it
Yeah,
too? I don't know.
let's see.
But no, right? That's that's, I was talking to somebody about that. I was chatting with them back and forth. And of course it devolves into whatever, you're probably not even vaccinated or something like that's what it devolved into. And I'm like, really? Like, that's where we're going with this? But, that person obviously didn't have the critical thinking skills to understand what that guy was saying. Like, saving, being thrifty and everything is fine. But if you really want to achieve like massive success, you have to create that income stream to get there. Right. And he's right. You save $5 a day on coffee. How many days do you have to save $5 to, for $1 million? I don't know, 200,000, right? How many, let's do some quick math here, right? Let's see here.
Here we go. We got
So 200,000 days divided by 365. Yeah. So in 548 years, you'll have $1 million if you save $5 a day on coffee.
Congratulations. Your money's now worth nothing because of inflation.
Yeah. Well, actually, here, let's do this too. Let's give this guy the benefit of the doubt. I got my financial calculator here too, so we'll do that. We'll do let's just do this is funny. Let me see here.
So, and while you're talking, it's like, I get it. Like, some people are like, hey, maybe I shouldn't spend $5 a day on coffee. Okay, well, why don't you put some discipline and write down your budget? And that's actually the problem, is people just don't know how to
Yeah.
tell themselves no and be a little bit of discipline. Now, it's not the coffee that's going to make you poor. It's your mentality towards money. You know what I'm saying? That's what it really is. It's people's mentality.
Oh, dude, that's absolutely. I say how like poverty is a mindset. It can be overcome. Tons of successful people. I'll tell you this. I've never heard anybody who was a self-made person who didn't absolutely believe that poverty is something that can be overcome. Right? Because they did it. Guess what? Actually, by the way, like if you took that $5 and invested it and you earned 7% annually, it would take you 52 and a half years to get $1.5 million. So
see, there's a chance, guys. $52, 52 years later.
But yeah, so anyways, I digress. I'm done like running numbers for you. But no, I think that was a good I'm going to do that. That's going to be a YouTube video one day. So,
and like, it's like, hey, like, you want a freaking coffee? Well, have you earned it? Cool. Go get the freaking coffee. Go get it. You earned it.
Yeah, for me, I work from home now, so
yeah,
go buy a Keurig or whatever. We get the little Nespresso machine, and that makes some really good coffee.
How is that thing? Because I'm using this Keurig. I like my Keurig, but I saw that Nespresso and I'm like, that's interesting.
It's the difference between driving a Toyota Camry and probably like a Porsche 911. So that's just my thoughts, my personal thoughts. No,
I love my Toyota.
It's good.
You're ragging on my Toyota, man.
You can get. Do you have a Camry? I don't know.
No,
I don't know what kind of, okay.
But you're calling my Keurig a Toyota, man. So
no, I'm just saying. Like, I've had a Keurig too, and then we got that. We got that Nespresso, and I tried it, and I was like, oh my god, it's. I mean, it's like drinking. I'll tell you, the pods are a lot more expensive. I think it's like the ones I get are like $1.20 or $1.30 a piece, which is still, I drink probably 3 cups of coffee a day. So there you go. I'm spending $5 a day on coffee at home. So, but I like good coffee.
You don't have a barista to serve it to you.
It's worth it to me. No, I have like a man bun wig. I put that on and a little thing. I have a name tag that says Tyler, they, them. And, you know,
I'm picturing just the apron.
sometimes I wear socks.
Your poor
But
feet.
yeah, so no, man, that's the mentality though. People think, well, yeah, if I just, save whatever. I saw this thing the other day. I shared it on LinkedIn too. It said, was talking about these people that like grow their own vegetables and stuff. You spend months like working on these things, and you build the planters, you buy the seeds, you plant them, you take care of them for months on end. And it says below, congrats, you saved $2. Some people, it's not about that though. Some people are like, you know what? I like to, I just like doing the work, right? For me, I cut my own grass. Why? Because it's 2 hours out of the day. I get to, and I wait till the hottest part of the day to do it too. Cause I go out there, I get a good sweat. I use a push mower. It's like a battery operated push mower, but it's me out there pushing it. Like that's a workout. Cause guess what? My yard, by the time I'm done cutting my grass, I've walked like 5 miles. Just me push it, right? So that's something that I like to do. I could pay somebody, what is it, $60 a week to go do it, and they do it in about 30 minutes. It takes me 2.5 hours, but I'm out there like doing it and I'm loving it. I'm listening to a podcast or something, and having arguments, winning arguments in my head, or plotting the next move for business. Like that's
I just
what
see
I
you
do.
out there pushing the mower.
Yeah.
Man, you're wrong, man. No, I'm right. No, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a rock.
Whatever. God damn, kids leaving stuff all over the garage. Next time, I'm just going to throw it out here in the yard and run over it with the lawnmower. And yeah. So, but again, too, like I guess that's the thing. Like I've kind of built that personal level of freedom. Like when I'm sitting here in my house all day, I have to get out. I have to go do. Like I do have the Panera unlimited coffee club thing. So it's like $8 a month. I can go to Panera and get coffee whenever I want. So I do that. I haven't done it lately because I've just been so busy I can't leave the house. But if I want to write, or if I'm working on something like an ebook or whatever like that, like I'll go to Panera. I can sit there for 3 hours. I'm stuck there at the thing. I'm not sitting here at my house where I'm like, oh, I need to go do some laundry real quick, or I need to whatever. Oh, there's the cat. I better pet him. Right.
Damn cats.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go play PlayStation or something. No, that's my buddy though. He was actually, before we hopped on here, he was sitting here on my lap. I hadn't spent any time with him all day, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you all day."
How come you
But
haven't been petting me today, bud?
yeah, right. What's going on? No, that's my little buddy.
Yeah. And that's like super important. I always tell people, I'm like, hey, if you pay a landscaper to cut lawn, so that way you could go focus on what you need to go focus on, that's
Yeah.
one thing. Or if it's like your time, like let's say, for example, I like going for long ass walks on the beach, like legit. That's like my thing to go do. It's not just in my eval. I physically go do it.
Yeah.
So like if that's like what you want to do, then do it. Like it is super important to have some kind of activity in your life. And just because you're paying for someone to for a convenience for something, it frees up your time. Time is just as let me rephrase this. Time is more important than the money that you're spending,
Yeah.
because you
Well,
can get the money back, but you can't get your time.
that's kind of the same thing I've done, where I've had um yeah, time is my most valuable asset. um but you're right, I do a bunch of different things. Like I don't just sit here. I do coaching. I through a nonprofit called the Honor Foundation. So that's something I like doing. That's normally 2 to 3 cohorts a year. I usually do like the first and the third one, because the summertime, the cool thing about this is most of the time in the summer, things are pretty easy for me. Like, not a lot of people want to talk about, whatever in the summertime. So that gives me a lot of freedom. I'm like, I don't care. Nobody's booking calls. Oh, well, I'll go fishing. I'll go paddleboarding. I'll go take some nice long walks. Like, it doesn't, oh, cool. I'll go to the daytime jujitsu class or whatever. But that's kind of like my biggest thing for doing what I'm doing now. Like, when I looked at it as I was getting ready to retire, I was like, you know what, man? Like, I know, um, I know for me, I have to age. I have to challenge myself. I can't do something where I could just get complacent and be. Uh, I need to be like under a certain amount of stress. I need to have like a certain like, oh man, I need to do this or whatever. Like, this is hard for me to do. I need to conquer this. Right. I knew I couldn't just sit at a job. And I think now, now that I've been out, I've kind of calmed down a little bit. I'm like, dude, if I didn't do this for a living, I wouldn't go look at one of those, 6-figure contracting jobs or something. I would probably go work at Lowe's. I mean, honestly, that's what I feel like that's probably what I would do. I'll go work full time at Lowe's, go in, do my shift, do whatever they need me to do, and then go home at the end of the day, and that's it. Right. Um, I just, I don't, but I knew like, hey, it would be tough. It would be a tough transition for me, like having a boss, having somebody I work for, having somebody I can't just go do whatever I want whenever I want. Like, that's, a lot of people have said that to me. Like, how did you last 20 years in the military? Just because that's a huge thing for me. I just never really liked people telling me what to do. And if they were jerks about it, then obviously I would push back. I was like, hey man, no, that's the people who, that's not to say I didn't have people that I wanted to work for, that I wanted to do a good job for, people that I respected that said, hey, you know can you help me with this? Can you get
Yeah.
this done for me? Right. I told the story about this guy. He was my LPO when I was on the Enterprise a long time ago. His name was Dennis Cruz, and he was he was from Guam, and he was this short, stocky dude. He was like 5'2" and 250, just
Yeah.
big dude, and everybody loved him because he was like the nicest guy ever. And he had, I call this the most powerful leadership tool that I've ever encountered, right? He would come ask you to do something that you absolutely didn't want to do because you knew it was going to be shitty. Like, oh, this is going to be a bad job. And he would come up and he would be like, hey, man, I need you to go do this for me or whatever. And you'd be like, oh, I don't want to do that. And he was such a nice guy. All he would do is be like, could you do it for me, bro? Okay, bro. He's like, just do it for me. Okay, bro. And he put his fist up like that. And you just like, okay. All right. And so it got to the point where, I was a fire controlman, but I made second class. I wanted to have my own work center. And they said, well, the DC work center is there. I was like, I'll take it. Right. Went in there, completely revamped everything because the guy who was there before got like a 79% on the 3M inspection. So I took that work center, took it over. The next time we had an inspection, we got a 97%, right? But DCPO is not the most glamorous job, right? There's a lot of stuff, and I would have to deal with stuff all the time. We had our it was on the Enterprise. So we had, our department LCPO was a master chief. So he and I were chatting a couple times a day because I own the berthing and the heads in the berthing, and my God, but he comes down there, he comes over to my desk one day. He's like, hey, Max, And I'm like, oh God, what? And he just, I forget what it was, something really gross. And I was like, oh, I don't want to do that, whatever. And he's like, you see his fist start coming up. I'm like, don't you do it. Then I just start cussing him out, like, you son of a bitch, blah, 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 F you, and this and that. And he's just like, he gets it up to the 90-degree angle, and he's like, you know, tilts his head over to the side. And I was just stand up and I was like, fuck, okay.
Damn you.
He was just like, come on, bro, just do it for me, okay, bro? And that was what he said. It's like this: you hold the fist up, you tilt your head over the side, and like, just do it for me, okay, bro?
I've had people I've worked with that done that shit. It's like, oh man. Okay.
Yeah, I always think about that all the time. And yeah, great that he's retired now. And I ran into him like right after I retired too. We were just sitting there chatting. I ran into him at the Panera. And yeah, it's cool to see people like that you haven't seen in forever. So I don't even remember what we were talking about before, but you made me think of that story, like, working, like having people that you respected, that you worked for, that you were lucky enough to have a conversation, or have that relationship with them, to where it's like, yeah, I know this sucks, but I'll do it for you. Right.
Well,
So
that's like one of the things is like authenticity. That is so. I think I was talking about authenticity and how I wasn't going to edit something out. Maybe my attention span's about. You see
yeah.
that close? Huh? It's getting smaller. Yep, about that right there. That's my attention span right there. So, but I think I was talking about relationships and authenticity. Authenticity, that's what it was. About being real, being who you like really are. And that's, if you want to be a leader, you want to be a leader in anything that you do. And just because you're a one-man band, you gotta lead yourself too. And
Yeah.
being a follower, you gotta lead being a follower, be an example of how to follow people. You have to be real. You can't if you're gonna be like, oh, I'm this macho, macho big dude that's gonna tell everybody what to do and they're gonna listen. That's not how it's gonna work. Everybody's got a different leadership style. Fist pounder. Oh man, the guilt pound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the same, when I was there, like I was like when I was in charge, the way I kind of looked at it is like I gave people the same amount of leeway that I gave myself. Right. I wouldn't, I tell you, like, it's funny, my last team, my LPO kept his boat. He had a little bay boat. He kept it right there at the harbor, Little Creek. So he would text me at like 6 a.m. and be like, "Hey, are you working out this morning?" I was like, "I don't know why." He's like, "I was thinking we could hop in the boat and go fishing before work." So go down there, we would get his boat in the water, we go fish for an hour or two, and then come into work. And it was funny because one day we were out there fishing, and then there was our skipper on his boat out there fishing too, right next to him.
That's always funny. Hey, sir, catch
But
anything?
yeah, no, it was funny. We so that was cool. Like they knew, like I'd tell, they even say that they'd like, hey, do we have anything? That's one thing I hated about being on a ship is just that, and I get it, right? I think like when I was in the fleet, like there was a higher percentage of people that would totally take advantage of your, being generous or whatever. Being an EOD, like we have smaller teams, right? The biggest team
Yeah.
we have is, I think it's 8 or 10 people, right? And it's, you all work in one spot in a cage, like you pretty much do everything together anyways. So it's, before we used to have, like, we couldn't get dismissed early for Liberty unless our O5 department head said so. Right. And normally they just said, nope, working hours are what they are. And so I remember this, like, my first team that I was chief on, we had this guy that came from another team. We had a guy that couldn't make the deployment. So we said, hey, we're going to bring this other guy over to your team. We still had some guys with that fleet mentality that were like, nope, working hours are working hours. Like, I never had that. I was like, dude, working hours are from when I start my work to when I get it done. Right. That's, to me, is working out. I've always had that mentality. And that's, just made me mad being on a ship. And they're like, okay, me and my guy, I had one guy when I was DCPO, me and him would bust our ass Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and make sure everything was done, to where, I would always go ask, hey, can we have Friday off or whatever? Can we just do? And they were like, no, we cannot do that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? Or the Balls Ferry come and take yours away? Or, so, but anyways, we had this young guy come on the team, and we're getting ready to go to Afghanistan for 11 months. And so I'm in our little team space, and the new guy, this guy just got to the team. He was finishing all this check-in stuff and everything. And he's just sitting there on the couch. And I'm like, all right, hey, I'm going to go grab some lunch. And then I got to swing by and get my shots or whatever. And then I'll be back, whenever I get back. And so they're all sitting there. And I come back like hour and a half, 2 hours later. And that dude's still sitting on the couch. And I'm like, Troy, what the hell are you doing here? He's like, well, I was sitting here till working hours are over. And I look at that, and the LPO, he's just sitting there. He's like working on something. I think he was like working on evals or whatever. I look at him like, Eric, what the fuck is he still doing here? And he just turns around. He's like, Troy, go home. And it just goes back to work. and
He's like,
and he's like, okay. And I was like, hey, dude, like, if you're done, check with him, check with the LPO, make sure he ain't got nothing for you. He's probably going to text me. And yeah, there's like, why are you sitting around here for, when we're doing our workups, like when we're training the team, dude, we're working 14 to 16-hour days all the time. Like, yes, when we get the chance, when we get some downtime, yes, take as much time as you can. And but his last team he was on, their chief was like, no, if you're done working for the day, you can sit here and read publications and study for your senior board until 4 o'clock or whatever. I was just like, why is it, I'm not going to sit there and tell him that, like, why the hell are you doing that? I just was like, okay, well, you don't work for him anymore. You work for me, and I don't do shit like that. So
yeah,
get out of here, man. Like,
it's like working to work is just not. It's
yeah.
not. If you're
Or sitting around and not doing anything for the sake of,
that drives me nuts too, man. Yeah, that drives me nuts. If the kid were to sit there and study, that's one thing, but he wasn't even doing that, man. He was like staring a hole in the wall.
yeah.
Like,
Also, I told him, I was like, look, man, you're going to have 11 months in the desert. Like, bring that stuff with you. You can study it while you're on deployment. You got 11 months to study for this. Spend time with your family now, right? You got a
wisely.
kid, like, right? I don't give a shit. I was like, honestly, like, that is the least of my concerns right now, is you getting qualified for that, because that's at a minimum 15 months away. So, yeah, I just had same thing, like that team that I was on, like, um, we were doing our workup. So it was, we do our EOD workup. It was an NSW, so we were supporting the SEAL teams. And then we go over, we do our workup with them. And now we're in that phase between when we finished our workup, we're ready to go, we're certified to deploy, and the actual deployment. And we had just done this stuff this week. We'd done all this pre-deployment stuff. And I come in on Thursday, or it's Thursday. I go back to the mobile unit where our office is, and I sit down with my OIC and we're chatting. And he goes, hey, man, I don't think we have anything going on tomorrow. He's like, do you see a reason that we need to come in? I'm like, no. And I was like, honestly, I don't think we need to be here on Monday either. And he's like, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just just tell the guys to text us, tomorrow and Monday, and then we'll come back in here on Tuesday. It's like, I like it,
Yes.
right? Like, yeah, and it kills me that all these people I just don't like that. But then again, too, yeah, you have guys that take advantage of that. And when you do, that sucks. Because I had a guy do that on one of my teams, and I said, all right, well, here's the deal. You're going to come in here with me, every day. You're going to get in uniform, and we're going to muster you and whatever. I don't give a shit. Saturday and Sunday too. Like he was like, well, blah blah blah. I was like, all right, well, obviously you can't operate under, you're not getting shit done and you're still taking off. Like, yeah, that ain't going to happen anymore. I'm going to show you, like, here's what happens when you can't act like a grown up. So
Yeah, man, you know, I I miss because like I'm in a predicament where I'm not really with the rest of the Navy because I'm going through the medical process right
mhm.
now, and it's you know medical appointments after medical appointments, and I miss it. Like I really miss the squadron life, um, the bond that we had, especially in the previous squadron that I was in. I was the debt chief. I was always the guy in charge of the entire evolution, and it's amazing um what you could accomplish. And I had the same leadership style. We didn't sit there at work to do nothing. Once we got all the aircraft up and ready and all the turnarounds all done and we all helped each other out, it's a team effort. One person's not just sitting out there by themselves turning a wrench. We all hang out there and bullshit around him until he's done, like, and give him whatever support he needs, and I miss those days,
Yeah.
um and if you haven't lived those days, whoever's listening, if you haven't lived those days, enjoy those days because one day they're gonna be gone.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that I really liked about the Navy, that I don't really, without a big conflict going on, I don't think the other branches really do this a lot. The constant deployments. Like, I loved deployments. People are like, oh, dude, I loved deployments. Like, whether I was on the ship or whether it was, in Iraq or Afghanistan, like, I loved
Yeah.
deployments. Um, I think that kind of always made me sad too when I didn't get to deploy anymore. I was like, that was something I was really used to, being on the road all the time, and I come back here and now I'm here all the time, and I do miss it. Like, I miss
Yeah.
going out and doing things, and so I try to make sure, it's kind of my goal over the next 5 years to get myself to the point where I work, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? Or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those are the only days of the week that I'll do any work. Um, the rest of it, I'm taking 4-day weekends, or really, dude, if I could just do 2 days a week, I would love that. you know.
You know,
Um,
um, so once you got out, how did you start your podcast to get the vet?
so I'll tell you how it started. It's funny how it started. Get to vet. Um, my buddy Mike was my first team chief in the OD. Um, So, he and I are both from West Virginia, and we were both born on May 5th. And, he started off as an ET, and then he came into the community. But, he was coming back here. He was the command master chief at EOD school, which I think is like, it's a huge school. There's like, at any given time, I think there's like 1,200 students there or something like that.
Hot damn.
But it's a joint service school, right? So
Yeah.
all four branches go there. Um, but he did a fellowship up there at Congress, which was cool. He did, he basically worked for, I think it was Senator Rubio. He worked for him for a year doing the defense fellowship. That was a cool experience for him. And then he came back here and he's like, all right, I'm going to retire now. I didn't know if there had been any discussions like putting him there at the force position, which, I think definitely would have been like Mike's a very stoic guy. Like he's very level headed. He's one of the best. He was my CMC later on too. And, the CMC that we had after him was, let's just say he wasn't Mike, but just, he's a super smart guy, all this stuff. And then he's got to the point, he's like, yeah, I'm done, man. I'm going to retire. I don't want to be the force master chief. I don't want to do any of this other stuff. And so, we go watch West Virginia football games over at Buffalo Wild Wings, because he lives right down the street from me too. But we're sitting there. I think they were playing, I don't remember who they were playing, but it went into like triple overtime. We're like 7 tall boys into the game, and he starts talking about tap class and how mad he was. Like, dude, was not like, I just still have so many questions after that. And he just started talking. And he's like, we should do a podcast about military transition. And I was like, oh, yeah. And, we start talking like, man, I just hate hearing the sound of my own voice. This goes back to what we started with, right? Oh, what are all these apprehensions I have about creating content? It's like, I do too, but whatever, we could do it. We could figure out how to do it. So we spent the next few weeks kind of reading about podcasts and understanding like how they're done and everything. And we said, we kind of sat down, had some beers occasionally, and we're like, yeah, I think, if we do it like this, this, and this, we could make it work. So we finally just decided to do it. We made this terrible video. I think if you go on the Get to Vet LinkedIn page, it's like the very first page or post that we made. It's this horrible video. We're like, hi, are you getting out of the military? Then you should listen to our podcast. It is called Get to Vet. It was really dumb. And we laughed about it.
I'm going to try to recreate that.
Yeah. And so we started recording episodes, started reaching out to people. I talked to all these people that I knew and had them come on, and just people sharing their perspectives of getting out of the military. And people started listening, like, yeah, man, I was listening to your podcast. I learned a lot of good stuff on there. And I just was like, oh, that's cool. Now tons and bunches of people started doing it, listening to it. And I've had a lot of people reach out. We haven't done a whole lot with it lately. And a lot of that's, I've been very busy with military money mistakes. Mike retired, so now he's like got a real job. And, so we got to kind of work around his schedule too. But just we've had a ton of people come on there, and I think we've got, I don't know, like 60 plus episodes, 70 episodes. It's just, I think we're going to try to do another round, because we're going to have you and Yogi come on too and chat. And it's been cool, man. It's something I enjoy doing. I get to meet new people. I've made a lot of good connections off of that, and build some relationships with people, and it's good. And I kind of told you, my own personal thing too. Like I told you the story before about this one kind of hit me in the feels pretty recently. We had this guy come on, young guy, 30, when he was 35, his Green Beret, got diagnosed with cancer, went through, did all these treatments and everything. And eventually it got to the point where the doctor said, hey, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. And so here he is, 38 years old, living with terminal cancer. And, we did that. I talked to him, a buddy of his who I had met through another connection, was like, yeah, you need to talk to my buddy, Derek Griffin's his name. So we chatted. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's get you on the show. So we kept trying to make the schedules work. Finally, we got him on. And, his big thing was like, I just wanted to come on here and share some of my experiences and what I learned with this stuff, before, that's how he said it. He's like, and I was like, yep, I know. And so we had him come on, share his story, talked about stuff. I think we talked for, I don't know, an hour and a half at least. And, recorded that on a Thursday. The episode came out on a Monday. And then I got a text Tuesday night that he had passed away. And so, I said that before, like I was super sad that he had passed away. I don't even know if he got to hear the episode, because like, his sister had gone through his phone after he passed away and texted me and said, hey, this is his sister. I just want to let you know. And I was like, well, thanks for letting me know. She said that Sunday night he had kind of taken a turn for the worse. And so I don't even know if he got to listen to the episode. But when that came out, I made a huge push to, get that out there and say, hey, listen to this episode. This guy, definitely, wanted to share this, and he just passed away. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would listen to his episode, and hopefully it helps somebody else. Right.
Yeah.
And that is by far our most downloaded episode now. And so, yeah, like super sad that he had passed away, and I don't even know if he got to listen to his episode, but also super proud too, because he had said that. He's like, you know what, man, I just want to get on there and tell this story before I'm gone. And you talk about stuff like purpose over profit and all that, and every once in a while you get to have an experience like that it hits you in the feels, and you're kind of like, wow, man, I got to help that guy just do this one last thing that he wanted to do before he passed away. And yeah, it definitely made me feel vindicated in doing, everything that I've been doing, not just that podcast, but all the stuff that I've been doing. Definitely made me feel like all the time and effort is at least a little bit worthwhile. So
Yeah. And Derek Griffin, he reiterated something that needs to be said. Be your own advocate.
yeah.
Be your own advocate.
We said it so many times that's what I made the name of the episode.
I know it's like be your own advocate in your transition. Be your own advocate in your finances. Be your own advocate in life. Be your own advocate in parenting. Be your own advocate in your job. You have to, if you don't stand up and look at the person in the mirror and say, hey, you're responsible for your actions and your take on everything, it's just gonna fall down. Like if you don't stand up and say, hey, this is mine, I need to take responsibility for it and move forward. Yeah. I If you don't mind, I would like to share this episode on my platforms.
Yeah.
Just because I want people to hear Derek Griffin and think about this whenever they are planning for their future. Because one day we're all going to end up just like Derek Griffin.
Yeah. And I think about like what you were saying there, like, look, nobody's ever going to be as invested in your success as you. And if you don't take ownership of it, somebody else will. Yeah. Right. So you have to be comfortable, are you comfortable with your fate not being in your own hands? Because I'm not. And that's kind of really what led me to where I am today.
I like to think of this podcast that I've been fostering and curating and all that stuff is building a tribe. So I just want to say, hey, thanks for like coming on here and being part of the tribe.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, man. Like we could probably sit here and talking bullshit all day long, you and I, and we see a lot. Even though you're a EOD, hey, your kind usually hang out in the hangar bay. I know you weren't on the carrier. They were just hanging out in that hangar bay, just taking it all up. But hey,
I know when I was on the Enterprise, right? That's where their thing was. I would go down there and hang out with them and try to, learn stuff, but that's,
No,
I
no, they're good people, man. Everyone I met, they're all usually down to earth, like salt earth kind of people. They're not full of themselves, but I just joke about, hey man, I'd like to have my hangar base so I could work on my aircraft.
yeah. Sorry, bro.
Yeah. I always ask people at the end, if you had a time machine and you were to go back, what kind of advice would you tell yourself at 18?
Oh man, buy shares of Yahoo and Google,
Mm,
and
yes.
and Apple.
Mm.
Yeah, Bitcoin. There's this thing called Bitcoin. Buy it now. Sell it all in 2016. That's what I would say. No, I guess I would. It's tough because now you worry about that paradox of me going back and giving myself advice, and if everything that I did had led me up to the path that I'm here today, like, I guess, like, I would think about things like try to be more humble, like don't, um when you quit smoking, don't eat a bunch of fast food, like take care of yourself better. Go start doing martial arts now when you're still limber, because when you're learning that shit when you're 40, it hurts. That's little just little things, right? Don't buy all those guns and trucks. Go save
Whoa,
up a
whoa,
million.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
Don't no
whoa,
no no what I'm
whoa.
not don't buy them yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
Start growing, get yourself $1 million or $2 million, and then go buy them. All right. So,
I mean,
but
I love my guns and trucks,
no, I do too. Like, but at the same time, it's just doing things in the correct order. Right. When we talked about time, right? That's something I talk about a lot, is like the time value of money. Uh, right. The longer you use it, the more you'll have, or yeah. So yeah,
Um,
I don't know. I probably just slap myself in the face. I'm like, that's going to be for the next 26 years.
I like the slap yourself in the face comment. That'd be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. That's for the next 25 years, you son of a bitch. Like, man, what's wrong with that guy?
yeah, what's wrong with that guy?
So,
That's probably the best advice I've heard. I just slap the shit out of myself. What's wrong with that guy? Oh man. What books or podcasts would you recommend somebody to digest?
so books. Let me see here. I got a whole bunch of books here.
Okay.
Just looking. I'll tell you what. One that I really love. Uh, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout by Dr. Rick Rigsbey. Awesome book. Like, go read it. Like, I would definitely take that book back and say, hey, read this book, man. You want to learn how to see. So that's a good one. Let's see here. I got all my books over here.
Oh, you're about to give me a library.
Man's Search for Meaning. That's a really good one. Let me see here. Oh, here's one. This is probably one you don't hear about in a lot of leadership things. PIMP by Iceberg Slim.
What was that? Pimp?
PIMP, PIMP by Iceberg Slim. That'll give you. I'll tell you this.
Is that an economics lesson from a pimp?
It's more about like psychology than anything. Like, you go read that book. It's Iceberg Slim was a pimp in Chicago back in like the 60s or 70s, and this yeah, go read it. I'll guarantee you that book is just as insightful as like a lot of this other stuff that's out there. And then, I don't know. I don't know. I've got a lot of books out there that I like. Yeah, just start with those. And Rich Dad Poor Dad, probably, in my opinion, the greatest book on personal finance that was ever written. Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I will say this too, like, you and I have talked. I'm not a fan of Dave Ramsey. I would still read his book because I've read his book several times. I watch his YouTube videos several times because I try to get the contrarian points of view, right? Like I like to hear from people who disagree with me or people that I disagree with. I like to try to understand like why do they think that way? And I listen to it, and guess what? That helps me, you know, either strengthens my resolve for why I feel the way I do, or maybe I say, hey, you know what? Okay, maybe I was looking at this from a different angle. Like
Yeah.
there's people that sit there and only talk to people that agree with them all the time. Like you're not doing anything. You're not challenging yourself, right? You're just putting on a khaki and polo shirt and going and sitting in that office and filling out Microsoft Excel spreadsheets when you could be out there, snapping necks, cashing checks, working in PT gear every day and Crocs and you know,
You just trying to
it's
relive your good life.
I am reliving my good life. Like that's my day now. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, like go out and read stuff that maybe you don't think you would normally read. And I'll tell you this, like I read this a long time ago. I read the Communist Manifesto along. So like I gotta see what this is all about, right? And I read it and I was like, yep, that guy was complete just dipshit, right? Like that guy lived in a fantasy land. Uh, but I knew that. Like I never would have known that if I hadn't read it, because now, it just strengthened my resolve, right? And I
Yeah.
read it, and now I know what it says, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see a lot of things wrong here. That it's one
You
of those
know,
things. It
knowledge is
sounds great
power.
in theory. Yeah,
Knowledge
yeah,
is power. And if you want to be good at whatever you're doing, like find material on it, read about it, absorb all that content, listen to books, read them, however you got to do it.
yeah. But here's the other thing. Here's the trick with that. Read those books. That's great. But don't just read them. Read them and go do something with that. Like whatever your takeaway was, go do something with it. Because if all you do is read it, then who gives a shit? Like, why did you waste your time? Like, read it, take something away from it, apply it to something in your life to make your life better. Because tons of people, like, there's a lot of people that know a lot of shit, that think a lot of shit, but they don't ever do shit with it. I call them academics. But,
I like it.
like,
Well, it's
yeah,
like I read the Cameron Haynes and I read the David Goggins book, and now I'm doing a half marathon
yeah.
this weekend.
I wish to, I'm hoping maybe I can start running again. So like
Oh,
when
there's
I,
no running in this game. It's all
yeah,
walking.
when
my,
I when I
my
when
head can't
I
can't
yeah
do it.
when I oh okay, when I retired, the doc told me, he's like, yeah, you're probably gonna have to have knee replacements in a few years, and I was like, ugh, that's not something I want to hear when I'm 37.
Oh man. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm my so like my vestibular, I ran a little bit the other day, and like just kind of the shaking up and stuff like that messes me up. And that's why like I'm in physical therapy 2 times a week working on
yeah,
my vestibular stuff. And hey, let's face it, I'm going to be in physical therapy for the rest of my life because of this damage that I got diagnosed with a broken ear, so
yeah,
uh for forever will be messed up. But here's the thing, I'm not going to let that just limit me. I'm going to push myself. Eventually I will run again, but I essentially kind of have to relearn how to run again,
yeah,
if that makes sense. I have to relearn how to do things. And this is actually kind of like um kind of really big to me is somebody saying, hey, you'll never be able to do this again. Fuck that.
yeah.
I'm going to get out there. And yeah, I may have to go, like, after I record episodes, you know what I have to do? I have to take a
That's,
fucking nap
yeah,
because I get migraines, I get headaches from it. But I'm I do it, and then I take a rest. And a lot of people, they look at me, they're like, "Oh yeah, man, you look healthy and stuff." No, I'm
I
like,
don't
"Fuck,
feel that way.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
feel that way, man." And it's like but here's the thing, you got to be an advocate for yourself.
mhm.
You got to push yourself. and you can't just let yourself sit around.
There's another part of that too that I think is really important when it comes to being your own advocate. Yeah, there's taking care of yourself and there's pushing yourself, but also understand when you need to ask for help. Um, and that's a big, especially like we talked about the suicide stuff, and several people that I've known over the last 2 years um, have committed suicide, and you know I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know enough about the subject, or we talk about this a lot. um some people just they I wish I knew more about it, because
And recently, hey, if this makes you feel any better, recently our community has gotten a lot better at what to do with it.
yeah,
They don't just give you an NKO course anymore.
yeah,
Like we actually had somebody that came. I'll put his information in my podcast notes, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's a tattoo artist, and he was in the Navy. Then he got out of the Navy, and he tried to kill himself. He literally like did an attempt, everything, and he was unsuccessful. But then he got help afterwards, and then he got better, and he wrote this book. He's doing talking events, and we were one of our command brought him over to talk about his book and what he's been doing, and he's talking about meditation and how that's really helped him out. It's crazy because before, like, we talk suicide, people we would crack jokes about, like, yeah, don't go kill yourself, don't go jumping off the bridge. We would say
yeah,
stupid stuff like that, insensitive things that we didn't, you know, but
yeah.
it has gotten better.
We
Um,
didn't know.
but
I
it's
tell you
not what
another
it used
good
to be yet.
book about that, like mental health stuff. Touching the Dragon by James Hatch. Um, awesome dude. Good book. Uh, so he was a SEAL over at Development Group. He had, I think his kind of, I don't know that he would call us a claim. I don't know that he wants to call us a claim to fame, but basically, the whole Bo Bergdahl thing, I'm sure you remember that. Bo Bergdahl, the kid that walked off his post in Afghanistan, and
Yes.
they killed.
Yeah.
He was out looking for him. He got shot in the leg, and it pretty much ended his operational career. And he talks about, like, a lot of people are like, oh man, this guy's going to have all kinds of cool stories about whatever. It's like, no, his book was about, like, a lot of the struggles that he had when he couldn't, you know, do cool guy shit anymore. And he's come and speak at several commands and stuff. And I just know, like, we jumped together out at here at Skydive Suffolk. We like, when we go out there and train, that's something else that he does for money. He's like, yeah, I go out and do jump coach people in skydiving. And but I think he was on the leapfrogs too. Yeah,
Oh, really?
I seem to remember that. But anyways, yeah, his book was very good. Like that, that's definitely one you should check out.
Yeah, man.
So
Bro, we will sit here and we will chat everybody up.
yeah,
We
do
we
it.
will go on forever, but like, bro, I feel like we've definitely probably formed something, and that's the thing, all from hey man, I'm doing this, do you mind helping me out?
Yeah.
That kind of connection can lead to friendship like this, man.
Yeah.
So
And well, that's it. Yeah, man. Vets love to help other vets, right? And
yeah.
that's I tell guys, keep doing it. But I hear the little ones upstairs. I gotta go put them in bed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
bro.
thanks
All
for
right,
having
man.
me on.
Hey, thanks for coming on, bro, and we'll talk later, man.
All right, take care. Have a good night.
All right, later, brother.
Bye.
Bye. I got a saved round and alibi here. It is, again, Return to Roots. It is releasing February 15th, 2023. It will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and many other social media websites. Please get out there, listen to it. It can help people. people in the long run. Our goal is to reduce homelessness and also suicides within the community. We are going to be talking about retention in the military. We're going to be talking about transition from the military and reintegration into the community. This podcast is not just for the service members, but also for the family unit dependents. Anybody that wants to help or say thank you for your service and put it to action, listen to the podcast. It will help you find ways to do so. You guys have a great day. ChartYourFi is not an affiliate and does not represent the views of the Department of Defense and or the Department of the Navy. All views are that of the host and the guests that are brought onto the show. This information is meant to be in general, so do your own research before you implement it. This is not financial advice and is meant for educational purposes. If you need financial advice, look it up on Master Chief Google or hire a reputable financial advisor. Alone we are weak. Together we are strong. In unity there is strength.